Good afternoon, Stacy. This is Diana. I'll be running the meeting today. I'm ready to go when you are.
Thanks, Diana. Okay, we've got about 2 minutes on my watch till we start, so we'll give everybody a quick minute. All right, everybody, it is 3:45 according to my computer screen clock. So I will call today's Public Safety and Health Committee meeting to order. I do see that we have enough folks for a quorum. So today is April 6th. We are still continuing to meet virtually. Despite being in a hybrid situation on Monday evenings, we are still meeting virtually on Wednesdays. And the best place for, I think by now everyone knows how to keep in touch with us and find out about upcoming meetings and how to dial in. And you can always continue to watch our committee meetings live or whenever it pleases you on YouTube. And you can also watch it on Spectrum channel 190 and as well as live on our YouTube or on our web stream. Diana is our assisting us today on the tech side, and I think she's going to put up the how to be in touch, and kind of the central location for everything is at the website at www.ci.missoula.mt.us/webcasts. And that's where you can find all the information. And then here is the screen for those folks who want to participate. And if you're logged in with Zoom, you can raise your hand, or if you are dialing in on the phone, you can press *9 to raise and lower your hand. And you can always continue to send all of us an email at council@ci.missoula.mt.us, or leave us a voicemail that gets digitized and sent out to all council members. And that number is 406-552-6012. All right, we will begin today with a quick roll. And if Diana, you wouldn't mind doing that for us, I'd appreciate it.
Starting roll calls: Stacy Anderson.
Present.
Daniel Carlino.
Present.
John Contos.
Here.
Merta Becerra.
Present.
Jordan Hess. Jordan Hess. Gwen Jones.
Present.
Kristen Jordan.
Present.
Mike Nugent.
Present.
Jennifer Savage. Jennifer Savage. Amber Sherrill.
Present.
Sandra Vasica. Sandra Vasica. Heidi West. Heidi West. Thank you.
Thanks, Diana. And I see both Sandra and Jennifer listed in the panelists. They may just be having some difficulties getting all of the computer. I know Jennifer was having some difficulties with her audio earlier, but hopefully if they can hear us, they will signal. All right, we have approval of minutes from our last committee meeting, which was held March 2nd, where we discussed the sale of surplus property. Are there any amendments or changes to those minutes? Great, seeing none, they will stand approved. Okay, so I see both Jennifer and Sandra are here and I can see their screens, they're waving. Okay, so please mark them as present. Okay, we do not have any public in the meeting at the moment, so I will make a note of that, so no need to call on public comment. We have two pretty quick committee items on our agenda today. The mayor is unable to make today's meeting, so we will be taking up his appointment to reconfirm Babak Raskoufar, really hoping I got that right. I've been practicing, for a reappointment to the police commission beginning a term of May 1st, 2022 and expiring April 30th, 2025. Mr. Raskoufar currently serves on the police commission, so this is a reappointment to his seat. He is an attorney. We have a 3-person commission. The ability for the mayor to appoint whom he chooses to this commission is laid out under Montana Code Annotated, and it is then approved by the council. His resume, Mr. Raskoufar's resume is attached to the agenda item today, and you can see that he is currently an attorney with quite a bit of extensive professional and volunteer experience, and he would like to continue serving our community on the police commission. Our police commission is made up with 3 members. One of them is a retired professor, and the other is a retired small business owner. So we have some diversity in that, and we are just approving the mayor's appointment. I did ask Assistant Chief Scott Hoffman to be here in case there were any questions that I was not able to answer, but it's a pretty straightforward agenda item. So I will now take any questions or comments, and this does need a motion to confirm, which is our role, the reappointment of Babak Raskoufar to the police commission. So I see that Ms. Jones has her hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Stacy. I would like to make the motion to appoint Mr. Raskoufar to the police commission, and I'd like to speak to it.
That is in order, and you may.
Great, thank you. I am really happy to make this nomination. Mr. Raskoufar, I do not know him personally, but this is the second time he's come through, and the first time he came through for an appointment to the commission, I was blown away by his resumes and experience and his education, and I just wanted to highlight that again. He has not only a master's, but also a JD. He's done extensive volunteer work, not only with his labor union as a leader there, but also with the Board of Adjustment as well as the Police Commission. And as an attorney, his career, he has had amazingly high caliber jobs. And if you're not in the legal field, you might not look at the law firm that he worked at and the agencies he's worked at and necessarily know that, but it's incredibly high level. This is a rock star who moved to Missoula and is giving to our community. So I'm really happy about that and happy to make his nomination.
Thanks so much, Ms. Jones. I appreciate you moving forward that nomination. Any other questions or comments on the reappointment to the police commission? I know that Assistant Chief Hoffman's here. Is there anything you would like to add that we didn't already cover as a part of this? I know it's a separate body from the police department, but I appreciate you being here this afternoon.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Ms. Anderson, you took all the words out of my mouth in describing the police commission, their functions and their appointments, all the way to the MCA codes. Mr. Raskoufar, if you say it fast, it's easier to pronounce. But he has been a great, knowledgeable, inquisitive person towards police practices and the things that they review. I think the biggest function for the police commission is they review all of our applicants, and they have to attest to their qualifications before we can hire any of them. So they sit in on the interviews, they read their resumes and applications, And one of the big important roles that they play, amongst others, is that they certify our applications and process and give us the authority to hire those only that are qualified to fulfill the position of a police officer.
Great. Thank you so much for joining today's committee meeting and providing that additional background. That's always very useful. So, all right. Well, I see no further hands for questions or comments. Ms. Jones's motion is in order and we will take a roll call vote. Diana, if you could help with that, I'd appreciate it.
Starting the vote, Stacy Anderson,
Yes.
Daniel Carlino,
Yes.
John Contos,
Yes.
Merita Becerra,
Yes.
Gwen Jones,
Yes.
Kristen Jordan,
Yes.
Mike Nugent,
Yes.
Jennifer Savage,
Yes.
Amber Sherrill,
Yes.
Sandra Vasika.
Yes.
The results are 10 yeses, 2 absents. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you to Mr. Raskoufar for his continued service to our community, as well as thank you, Assistant Chief Hoffman, for all that you do and for joining us at Committee of Public Safety and Health today. So, all right. We will move on to our second agenda item, which is the first reading and preliminary adoption of an ordinance to amend Chapter 2.8 of the Missoula Municipal Code. And we'll have a presentation from Fire Chief Gordy Hughes, who I do believe is with us.
Good afternoon, members of the council. Can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Oh, great. Yes, so many of you were at the goofy meeting we had that was kind of a time delay and awkward to say the least, but we proposed that we would emulate the change to the residency requirements for the city department heads, which changed recently, and we want to mirror that change with our firefighters and our police officers. And that change is a response for living residents to a boundary not to exceed 45 minutes from our city limits. So what that does for our folks is it gives us an opportunity to try to take advantage of locations that may have a lower cost of living and residency than right here in River City. So I'm not sure the procedure on the reading, if I have to go line by line or if you all have seen the
No, you don't need to go through it. It is attached as well. And we'll now open it up for questions from members of the council on this. So as Chief Hughes said, this is kind of adopting similar guidelines to what we did a few weeks ago, I guess, in regards to letting department heads have a broader range of where they're able to live. Currently, we ask first responders to live within 30 minutes of the city limits, and this will allow them to move an additional 15 minutes farther so that they have a 45-minute response time. And one of the questions that we asked Chief Hughes, and he can speak to it if he'd like, is, how would this affect response if there was an emergency? And if you wouldn't mind kind of telling us what you shared with the chairs when we met with you to discuss this. I think that's the biggest concern that a change like this would bring up.
You bet, Stacy. So when we have the event that we need extra crews called in for larger incidents, we generally call for 2 engine companies and a battalion chief to restaff or to provide back coverage for the city. In the event of a real catastrophic event, we'll do what is called a general alarm, which calls all available firefighters back to the city or back to response conditions, and we'll staff stations and extra apparatus for those larger incidents. In the event that we have something that we're overrun with that would require additional resources, we would rely on our cooperators around the area with our automatic and mutual aid agreements that we have in place. That would bring in the Missoula Rural Fire Department, Frenchtown Fire Department, East Missoula, Clinton Fire,
Yes.
all available resources within those other districts to help
What?
cover.
Mr. Contos, can you please mute, please? You're interrupting
gosh.
me. Thanks.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Go ahead, Chief Hughes.
Yeah, so I'm not anticipating everybody in the fire department to run out and grab a house in Hamilton, Montana, or as far, I think we ran the numbers that just this side of Superior, Montana would be a 45-minute response to our west corridor in the city limits there. We're looking at St. Ignatius up the valley, Clearwater Junction, up Highway 200, and as far as Drummond out east of town. So by opening up those areas, we're just given a larger potential of available housing within those regions. And personally, I don't anticipate everybody running out, selling their houses for profit here in Missoula and trying to find a replacement home in any of those other locations. So that doesn't concern me. Concerns for our callbacks, the way we stand right now, and it may be something that happens in another lifetime from now, that a majority of our workforce is in those locations where we'd have to anticipate a longer response time for those folks to show up on an emergency scene. So at that point, I think we definitely reevaluate this if this motion should pass.
Great. Thanks so much for that background. When I was reading through all of this, preparing for today, I couldn't help but think of my childhood, and we had a scanner on top of the china cabinet that every time there was a structure fire, a general alarm was called in the city of Kalispell, because there was only one fire station. And here in Missoula, we are lucky we have 5 that are fully staffed. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But there was never a time where my family went anywhere without my father having a radio for just that reason. So it's definitely a different era now, and we are fortunate to have so many personnel that cover our 5 stations, and police and fire are the 2 largest city departments. So this really does allow for additional recruitment opportunities, especially for folks if they're just looking to buy their first home, or they would like some land because of lifestyle choices. So this just frees them up as well. And Gordy, I'll turn it back over to you.
And I see Scott Hoffman is still on the call here, so maybe he can add to what they've experienced recently with recruitment in PD, with frustrations of finding affordable housing.
Yeah,
I would just echo what Chief Hughes said. When recruiting officers, one of the first things that they look at is the housing market. And our housing market is extremely competitive, and really it's out of reach for some of our entry-level positions. So it will help with recruiting. It will also help with giving these people a home instead of trying to rent places. So it's only a positive thing in our eyes and in our association's eyes as well.
Great. Thanks so much for that background. Okay, so we have a couple hands raised. I will go to the queue of council members, and we'll start off with Ms. Fasika.
Thanks. I didn't have a question. I just wanted to make the recommended motion and then speak to it if I may.
You may. That's in order.
We love our firefighters and our policemen, and we forget that they have lives and families of their own too. And even if you love and live in the city of Missoula, life changes, like you grow your family. And sometimes, like Stacy said, you want to buy a piece of land and don't want to be in the middle of the city, but you still love your job that's in the city. So I think this is great. And I think it absolutely, for all the reasons mentioned, that we will have a lot more recruitment. And I think higher morale as well. So I'm really happy to support this. Thanks for bringing it up.
Great. Thanks so much, Ms. Sika, for that motion. It's in order. And so now we can have discussion or questions on comments on the motion. Ms. West.
So I was wondering what kind of an incident would, I guess, trigger all of our emergency responders to, show up for something. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that in Missoula. And so I was curious, what sort of incidents fall into that category? And then also, when was the last time we experienced one, an incident like that? Because I would hope it's not frequently, but it would be nice to know, kind of the history.
Great question. Heidi, the last time we had an event like that was when Vantage Villa caught fire. And Vantage Villa is the housing complex that's out on East Missoula. Low-income MHA house, that was an arson fire. It burnt the second floor off that structure. And now, we don't see, I would say that with the addition of Station 5 back in 2008, that our staffing level affords us and the location of our stations gives us a quicker and a larger response now that we are able to capture fires, generally room and contents, unless they've had an additional assistance by gasoline or something of that sort. Not saying that something can't get away from us if we had a large wildland fire response, but in that situation, we're calling on our Forest Service cooperators and the state resources available to us locally. Before the Vantage Villa fire, I look back and the double front chicken fire was probably the fire previous to that we called a general alarm on. So it's fortunately very infrequent that we have those large incidents.
Gordy, I would just add that the avalanche of the rattlesnake was one of those where we were calling in anybody and everybody that was available to help with the search and to contain it and recover. So I know there was a lot of fire personnel and police personnel and still trying to cover the city with all the other emergency services necessary. But that was a you all come.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for that background. I really appreciate it. And also, I would say that building codes and building standards has also helped a lot with that over time, especially with structure fires. So some may see it as nuisance, but others see it as a good thing. Okay, we still have one more question from Mr. Carlino.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this. Whenever I was doing my ride along with the police, we ended up with police and firefighters from Missoula all the way in Clinton. And my question, and just in light of the affordable housing crisis in Missoula, I feel like this is really important to expand this. But I was just curious how often city emergency respond outside of Missoula, within that radius.
With fire, well, go ahead, Scott. Didn't mean to cut you.
I was gonna let you go first. You're
All right. We have, like I mentioned, the automatic aid agreements and mutual aid agreements with those cooperators. Most recently on Sunday, we responded to a fire off of West Mullen that the Missoula Rural had. And before that, we had a large structure fire off of Hagen Drive, which is over on the backside of Linda Vista, closer to the Miller Creek drainage and the Bitterroot River. Our Station 5 was closest, so that wasn't automatic. They didn't request us, but since we're closer, we rolled our engines in response there. So it's quite frequently that we do provide that backup and support because of those smaller departments. They don't have the permanent available staffing that we are afforded here in the city, and that's why we pay the tax dollars that we do to provide hopefully immediate, good quality service to our folks.
I'll just add to that, likewise, mutual aid agreements between us and the county, and even as far as some of the closer cities like Hamilton often call for our assistance. If the county has, well, recently, this past winter had a homicide in the county, and it took all of their resources, and they asked us to cover their calls, which puts us out into the county. It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, we have to be able to react immediately. And so sometimes we have to call in personnel while they're calling in personnel to cover the city and the county while they're handling something as big as a homicide.
Great. Thank you so much for all of that background. Always informational to have both of you here. So we are coming up to the end of committee meeting schedule today. So don't see any other questions in the queue. Also, there is no attendance. So just a reminder for folks that this is Ms. Vasika's motion is to set a public hearing to begin on May 2nd for preliminary adoption of the ordinance amending Chapter 2.8 Missoula Municipal Code. So we will hear this in a public hearing on May 2nd. So, but we do need to take a vote on moving this forward. So Diana, if you could help with that, I'd appreciate it.
Starting the vote, Stacy Anderson,
Yes.
Daniel Carlino,
Yes.
John Contos,
Yes.
Merta Becerra,
Yes.
Gwen Jones,
Yes.
Kristen Jordan,
Yes.
Mike Nugent,
Yes.
Jennifer Savage,
Yes.
Amber Sherrill,
Yes.
Sandra Vasika.
Yes.
We have 10 yeses, 0 nos,
Sorry, and West is here, so make that 11 yeses.
11 yeses.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody. I appreciate it. Like I said, we'll see this on the floor on May 2nd. And with that, I will call today's Public Safety and Health Committee meeting to order to adjournment, and that gives everyone a little bit of time to get their 4th or 5th cup of coffee before we reconvene at 4:25 for the rest of our marathon day of committee meetings. Thanks so much for your time and service. Appreciate it.